Good morning and welcome to the final episode of our Totally 80s series on mystery, murder, and magic. Come to think of it, it'll be the final mystery, murder, and magic episode of the year. It's hard to believe that this year is almost over, but yet at the same time, it seems like the longest year ever, right? I'm not going to be claiming 2022 as my year because who knows what that might cause. So I'm just going to welcome the new year and hope for the best. Before we get started on today's episode, I want to thank you all for a wonderful first year as a podcast. We've been more successful in this first year than I ever dreamed we could be, and it wouldn't happen without you guys. We hope your new year brings all you want. Now, so far, we've talked about the kidnapping and murder of Adam Walsh back in the early 1980s. The crime spree of Otis Toole and Henry Lee Lucas that carried over from the 1970s into the 1980s. And just last week, we talked about some infamous scandals of the 1980s. Today, we're going to talk about a murder that I really believe that I found most profound in that decade. And to this day, it still gives me these crazy messed up feelings.
Mystery, Murder, and Magic proudly presents Totally 80s. And here's your totally rad host, Andrea Lee.
State Police Boston recorded an emergency 510.
My wife's been shot. I've been shot.
Where is this, sir?
I have no idea. I'm off. I've been coming from Tremont, Brigham and Women's Hospital.
Tremont Street area.
That caller was a man named Charles Stuart. In his call to 911, he claims that he was driving through Mission Hill area of Boston. Both he and his wife were shot. And he goes on to say that the suspect was an unknown black man. Charles's wife, Carol, was barely clinging to life, and Charles himself had a fairly serious gunshot wound to the stomach. Soon this story was making its way across the country. And to hear the media tell this story, this is what could happen to a wealthy couple if they drove through an unsavory part of town. And the Stewarts were an affluent family. Charles was the general manager of Edward F. Cacus, which was a fur business there in Boston, and Carol was a tax attorney. To make this story even sadder, Carol was pregnant with the couple's unborn baby. They had just attended a birthing class and were on their way home from it when Carol was shot in the head. Their baby boy wasn't due for another 2 months, but after his mom was rushed back to that same hospital she had just been at for the birthing class, little Christopher was born, and his mom passed away around 3 a.m. the next morning. Doctors were able to keep him alive, but on November the 9th, he passed away too. And it was from the respiratory failure and whatnot from being born so early. And he was only 17 days old. Now, Charles, the dad, the father, he had been rushed to Boston City Hospital and was in surgery for 10 hours to save his own life. Now, Charles was unable to attend Carol's funeral because he was still in the hospital, but he did write a eulogy that was read at the funeral. They had only been married for 4 years. Well, as you can imagine, such a brutal killing of a mom and subsequently her son sparked outrage throughout the city. Mayor Flynn promised that the killer would be found, and he ordered the Boston Police Commissioner to send every available officer to Mission Hill. Only 2 days after the shooting, the investigators were able to put together a profile of who they thought they were looking for. They believed that the man either lived in the Mission Hill area or frequented the area often. State lawmakers took action also and demanded that the death penalty be reinstated in the state of Massachusetts. Something that I should mention is that there had been a crime wave in the city of Boston that had started earlier that year. So lawmakers and law enforcement were ready to crack down on those committing the crimes. Now, according to Charles, the man they were looking for was 6 feet tall. He had a raspy voice and was wearing a black sweatsuit with red stripes. Stuart also told authorities that the man first tried to rob them, but suddenly something made the man think that Charles was a cop, and that's when he shot them. Several suspects fitting that description were taken in police. One of those taken in was a man named William Willie Bennett. He fit the physical description, and he had the raspy voice too. And on top of that, Bennett had a record of committing violent crimes that included shootings. In late December of that year, police showed Charles in a police lineup, and it was said that Charles had a strong physical reaction when he saw Bennett. Well, after that, Charles's brother Matthew had had enough. Matthew had apparently been Charles's accomplice in what Matthew thought was an insurance scam. After the shooting, Matthew had actually carried away a bag containing the gun used in the shooting, both Charles's and Carol's wallets, and their jewelry. It was later confirmed by a television show called Cold Blood that Charles had received a $100,000 insurance check, and he cashed it just after he was released from the hospital. It was also reported by the New York Times that an $83,000 insurance check had been cashed. Charles had used this newly acquired money to purchase gold jewelry, a clock that was valued at $950, and a brand new Nissan Maxima that he paid cash for. And get this, while Charles was in the hospital and his wife had just died, he was showing interest in a young female co-worker. The woman's name was Deborah Allen, and she insists that there was never any romantic involvement. Now, the man that had written a seemingly loving eulogy for his wife's funeral was asking for another woman to call him in his hospital room. This entire time, detectives were obsessed with finding this fictional black man, and the whole time the murderer was laying in a hospital bed. They took no interest in finding out that Charles was actually unhappy in his marriage and was furious with Carol for not having an abortion when she found out that she was pregnant with little Christopher. And you would think that he would be ecstatic over the fact that he was about to become a dad for the first time. But he was more worried about Carol not going back to work, and he would suffer financial ruin. He had even talked with family and friends about how captivated he was by this coworker, and he even told them about his wish to see Carol dead. Everything that he had told the police, the 911 dispatcher that night, even what he told through the eulogy at Carol's funeral, had been a bold-faced lie. So why had his brother Matthew had enough? Well, probably because they were looking for and accusing an innocent black man for taking the lives of his sister-in-law and nephew. Matthew met with police and told them that his very own brother Charles was the one responsible for the murders on that October night. And in return for testifying against his brother, Matthew was given immunity. Now, somehow, the day before Matthew went to talk to the police, Charles had found out that his brother was going to turn him in, so he ran. He drove to the Tobin Bridge over the Mystic River and leapt to his death. Now, even though he deserved to die, where was the justice for Carol and Christopher? that brand new Maxima that he had just paid $16,000 in cash for only just days before he died was found on the Tobin Bridge, and inside of the car was a note. That note said that the new accusations had sapped him of his strength and he was beaten. The next day, his body would be found in the river below. Now, here's one of the things that gets me about this case. After Charles's death, some of his relatives came forward and told authorities that he had told them about his wish to kill Carol. And he had told them that long before the actual murder. So why on earth did they wait so long to say something? Why didn't they say something to authorities about that, like right after she was murdered, or even better, why not say something to authorities before it even ever happened? I mean, maybe they didn't take him seriously. I wasn't there, so I don't know, but I feel like when somebody says something like that, you just kind of take them very seriously. In Carol's memory, her family established a foundation that provides scholarships to Mission Hill residents and Malden High School graduates. One of the recipients of the scholarship is the daughter of William Bennett, the man who had been arrested originally for Carol's murder. Now, I know this was a somewhat short episode, but as you can tell, I woke up with a sore throat over the holiday weekend. So I'm trying to rest my voice so it doesn't get worse. But thanks for listening today. Come back Wednesday for the midweek mini. Y'all have a good day.